Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, maybe, depending on where you are in the world today. Thank you for joining. I hope the technique works also, and that you're seeing a screen and that you're seeing 4 people in your screen. Thanks again for being here. Welcome to this webinar about Workations today, insights and best practices. So this webinar is powered by WorkFlex. We'll tell you a little bit about WorkFlex in a second. And as you can see, also the Workation Alliance. And let me introduce the Workation Alliance really quickly. We are a bunch of experts from leading organizations, and obviously we're experts around the topic of workations. And why do we have this alliance set up? Because, well, basically for 2 reasons. Because we'd like to exchange experiences around this topic. It's obviously very new, and every employer is working on it, maybe even struggling with it a little bit. It's always better to share the pain a little bit, right? And learn from each other. So we exchange experiences. And the other objective is, well, because this is such a new topic, we also feel a responsibility, let's say, to jointly develop this benefit of the future, how I would like to call it. So as a result, we've put our heads together. You see a couple of the companies that are part of the Workation Alliance on the screen now. Also really cool to be supported by the BPM and the PMA. Probably Daniel will tell a little bit about the People Mobility Alliance as well later on. And we just spread the word around Workations and offering them as a benefit. And so our sessions are closed usually for members only, but we also like to do sessions like this for everyone to see and to learn from the experiences that we have talked about in this round. So thanks again for being here, and hope you're going to have a great 1.5 hours, and you'll learn from the best, hopefully. This is the agenda, so not too long. Introductions first, because, well, as I said, you see a couple of faces in your screen. It would be nice to get to know these people, I guess. Then a session that I will do on data talks. We at WorkFlex have experience with 10,000 workations right now, and I think that it tells us a lot of things. I would like to share, I think it's 7 key insights with you. And then we'll have a session a little bit dedicated to Allianz. Oana is here from Allianz. She brought a video, maybe even 2, depending on the time. And we're going to talk interview style about the program at Allianz. Before we have, and that will be the majority of the time, panel discussion with the other members that you can see right here. If you've joined another webinar that I've moderated before, you know that, well, I'm Dutch, obviously, and I'm not super structured. So the panel discussion, although it's number 4 in the agenda, I always kind of spread it out throughout the entire session. So more or less the panel discussion has started now, and the other topics are guiding us through the 1.5 hour that we have with you today. Good number of people online. Also really cool to see the chat being so active. I think there's one slide on how you can join the conversation later on. But first things first, let's do a couple of introductions. And because I've been talking for a while already now, let me just continue right away. My name is Peter, Dutch. As I said, I'm the co-founder of WorkFlex. My background is that I'm a tax lawyer, used to work at PwC for a long time, first here in the Netherlands. Then I moved to Germany for some time, did move back to the Netherlands, but I always remained working in Germany. So that's when my remote working life started. And my specialty has always been around employee mobility or temporarily. Well, we at WorkFlex, we've made an art out of enabling workations, so temporary work from abroad. And this is a company that I, together with Patrick, started a little over a year ago. Originally from WorkMotion, you might see the branding, might recognize the branding, but now we're a separate company. Apologies for my very, let's say, home office background. Had to bring my boys to their grandmother today, and I'm in my former twin sister's bedroom, working here from my mom's place, so it looks a little bit amateuristic. Sorry for this. I did bring my whole setup, but the background I couldn't change in the 5 minutes that I was sitting here before. So that to me, and then I've brought 3 specialists in the area of well, global mobility, and they will introduce themselves. I would like to hand it over first to Gudrun. Seems like Gudrun lost connection. She'll probably be back in a second. I also don't see a video of her. So Daniel, you're next on my screen.
Yes, thanks, Peter, for the introduction. Yes, my name is Daniel Zinner. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. Yeah, I'm in the area of global mobility or cross-border moves for around 20 years now. And yeah, currently I'm working with and for Clevis. Clevis is a HR consultancy based in Munich with a strong focus on the German SME market. So yes, I'm very much excited being part of this panel today. Peter, yeah, one thing I forgot, I'm also the founder of the People Mobility Alliance, which partners with WorkFlex or Workmotion. And here we really take the whole topic of global mobility forward, make it a bit broader. And I think this, the connection with you guys is a very good fit. Of course, this whole WorkFlex topic or Workation from abroad, has expanded the scope of global mobility and global mobility departments in corporations. So very much looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Daniel, just like one quick question right away. Huh? So you founded the People Mobility Alliance. What's the objective of the People Alliance, and maybe more interesting, why did you feel the need to establish this alliance?
As I said, global mobility in my perception is very much transactional. It's very much focused on corporations moving people from one country to another. But I guess over the last couple of years, especially also given the COVID or the pandemic, I've seen a big trend of where we move from bigger corporation populations being moved around the world towards individualization. So there's a big hunger, or there's a big requirement of people, of individuals around the globe to be flexible, to move somewhere else, be it short term, midterm, long term. And so we are really very much focusing on the individualization of international moves or international mobility, and also the focus on technology. So how can you empower the administration of compliance, the increase of employee experience or people experience in the transfer process with technology. So all these factors brought together, brought Mira Patak, who's the co-founder, and myself to the conclusion we need a new format, and we need to take this whole topic one step ahead.
Very good. Thanks. Yeah, a very good point, right? Individualization and technology, like game changer. So makes sense, yeah. So I see Gudrun. I think you are back. Could you introduce yourself? You're muted again, though. You were unmuted, but you're yeah.
Now here we are. So sorry for that. I have some technical difficulties, as it seems. So I have a construction site below my window, and I guess these guys are responsible. So I hope it will all stay. So my name is Gudrun Kipp from Robert Bosch GmbH, Germany. I'm situated in Stuttgart area. Working for Bosch for 25 years and 20 of which in international assignments. So I'm kind of an expert in expatriate management in different functions. We saw during the COVID crisis, where I was also on a crisis management, and all the cases of people working from anywhere in the world came to my desk somehow. We had a very old process for dealing with people working from third countries in a remote option, but it was a very slow and a very expensive process. And it was not made for hundreds of thousands of cases. And that somehow my team and I thought we need to find a solution for that, because this will not go away after the crisis. This is something we have to deal with. So it was not that I am a visionary, it was more that we had the problems on the desk and we needed a solution. And honestly, I have to say, Peter, I don't know if you know that, but it was after a call that we had with you where you were still at PwC, that we really felt inspired to go for a technical solution with using our bot. We had some thoughts on that, but we were not sure it was working. And when I heard that you are doing it, I thought, hey, then we can do it as well. So we developed a bot-based half-automated solution for Bosch inside. And we have around, we started in Germany, but we're now working on the worldwide rollout of the tool. And we have now around 2,000 cases. We started last year in April, and have already received 2,000 applications. So it's really a big thing. And I have to say, from time to time, because it's really a lot of work, I was thinking maybe it goes away. Maybe it's just a one-hit wonder. And today I can say it is not. This will stay, this will remain a topic we have to deal with in HR.
Yeah, well, very good and great introduction. Thank you very much, Gudrun. I think you've already thrown up a lot of balls that we can get back to later on. Really interesting to hear, and also really cool to hear that we, so I and PwC could have been we're a little bit of inspiration for others. That's really great. Last but not least, Anna from Allianz. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Oana Hayek. I'm working for Allianz, and I'm based in Bucharest, Romania. As a background similar to Peter, I have always worked in global mobility, specialized on international assignments on the tax implication and social security, because I worked before at the provider side in Big Four, and also there I changed the environment and joined another company on the business side, also in the global mobility team. After that, I joined Allianz for this project, actually, for what we call cross-border remote work. Here we talk about a workation, because it was very interesting, very hot at that moment, and I knew that most of the companies didn't really had a process in place, and Allianz showed that it's interested in this, and that's why for me I was very enthusiastic about this. So I joined Allianz a year ago, being the first member of the cross-border remote work team. Now I have a few colleagues here in Romania, and here at Allianz I am handling the operational side, meaning that I'm also taking care of the requests that the employee are making, and that need a special, let's say they have a complex case and need additional attention from our side, so we have to review them manually. And also on the strategic part, being actively and continuously improving our system, because you'll see that we also have an internal tool, thinking how to improve the employee experience and how to make our process more and more efficient, in order to allow as many employees as possible to benefit from the cross-border remote work program.
Great, thanks, Juana. It was super introduction. So you said it like pretty quickly. So you joined already a year ago for this program. That's how I know Allianz, right? So you were super early to basically introduce quite well the technology that you use, but also the program, right? I think you were one of the first in the market. Correct?
Yeah, exactly, and that was also my surprise. So when Allianz contacted me about this, I was very surprised, because I heard about cross-border remote work. I know that people already wanted and were interested in being able to work remotely, because mainly during the pandemic, we at my previous company, we had such requests, because you know that people for a while were blocked in some countries and so on. And I knew that something new on the market, and also if we discuss about legislation in place, not all the countries have aligned yet. I knew there was new and it was interesting. So seeing that Allianz is basically not first or the market probably, but it was a few steps ahead. Many companies that made me join the company and to be so involved in this program, and also being part of this tool that we have and finding automation solution, improving this. I believe that this is the new way of working and the new way of handling a process internally whenever it's possible, of course.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks all of you for your introduction. Now, so for everybody watching, I hope you understand why I brought these people together. I'm super happy with this panel. Oana with Allianz is obviously like an early adopter of this topic. Daniel is, you've already heard it, right? So he's an HR transformation specialist, but he has a very big vision on HR and GM and technology. And Gudrun is, not only is she working for one of the largest German employers in the world, she has extensive experience. And at the same time, Gudrun, you're also still an early adopter. And that's cool, right? That's a talent you don't see, those talents you don't see combined into people in one individual a lot. I do see my video in my own screen flickering a little bit. I hope the connection is okay. If not, you can put it in the chat. That's, by the way, the point where we are now anyway, where I'm going to tell you to please join the discussion. You see a Teams image here. Of course, that doesn't work. We're in Demio today. So although you can talk, we will not hear you, but you can still ask questions, and we would very much like you to do so. Many of you have already found the chat. I can see it on the right-hand side. People joining from Berlin, Hamburg, Portugal, Switzerland. It's the most tropical place out here. It's close by still, but maybe somewhere on the other side of the world. Don't know. Please use the chat for asking any questions that pop up. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter how long, short, stupid, smart, really doesn't matter. Please ask your questions. Although the four of us really like to hear each other speak with ourselves, we are here for you today. We would like you to let's say, gain something from this. So if we're not headed in the right direction for you, or we missed something, please put your question in, and I will try to make sure that that the answer is given by all three or either one of them. So please be active. That's also why we've taken a little bit longer than the regular hour today, because we usually see a lot of questions popping up. So we're really depending on you, audience. Thank you. All right. Quick introduction from my end. So at WorkFlex, right, we have a technology similar to Oana used within Allianz. We've got a technology in place with the technology employers can enable or temporary work from abroad for their people. So we do it for clients, around 100 companies right now. And that means that we have now been able to gather some information on 10,000 workations. And that's a lot, right? And everybody talks about workations, but I think data really talks and can show us what are we talking about when we're talking workations, what have we learned from them. And I brought, I think, as I said, 6 or 7 key learnings with me today from this data that I hope you'll enjoy. I also see the first questions coming in. That's great. Let me take 5 minutes or so for this part, and then we'll start, let's say, the panel discussion, and we'll focus on Allianz a little bit. But first, and Steffi, great. Keep up the good work. All right. So learning number 1, this is not going to be new, right? But there's still always 2 limitations that companies have in their policy around workations or temporary work from abroad. And the one is a company threshold. Probably Gudrun will confirm that from a compliance perspective, such a company-wide threshold saying 30, 40 or whatever number of days maximum per year doesn't really make sense. But from a business perspective, very much does. Because there is a bigger compliance risk that we're trying to manage, it makes sense limiting the entire stay abroad from your population to a certain extent. What I like so much from this graph, and I can actually go to the next slide to add some logos to it, you see how variable this threshold now is. With Adidas, with 10 days only, and Workmotion or WorkFlex, and some of the like very progressive companies all the way way up to 183 days. And then everything in between. On this picture, by the way, the darker the column, the larger the employer is. In practice, what you see basically is that the vast majority of employees that are included in this graph, they're allowed to work from abroad 30 days or below. That seems to be a natural threshold that has grown into the market. But what I still very much like from this graph is like the great variety shows very strongly that we're all just still trying a little bit, right? And Gudrun is on this sheet here with I think 54 days. Hopefully later you can comment a little bit on this. We're just trying. And of course, we'd like to make it higher, but maybe we have to do it a little bit lower going forward. You see that companies are trying by putting a company threshold in place, but nobody really knows like what is the exactly the correct threshold. So I think it's very exciting to see that people are trying, and it's a sign we're at the beginning here, and we can definitely learn from each other. Yeah, this is what I mentioned. If you now put these in the employees from the employers that we had on the previous slide in a pie diagram, this is what you actually see, that the vast majority of employees, 64% almost, can only work from abroad for 30 or below. And then there's 1/3 that does a little bit more. But so as I said, this is somehow a natural threshold that has grown into the market. Third insight. We'll get to that later. This one, top destination countries. Yeah, there's a rather extreme concentration of workations in top destination countries for workations. I have to admit, so there's 3 company data in this. So we've got WorkFlex, and then we've got 2 other companies who were so kind to give us some data, and we saw the same. So you see WorkFlex, reference client 2. And I think there's more than 15,000 workations actually in this deck. And you see a very strong density in destinations. So Spain and Italy are in the top 2 for 2 of them, and in all of the top 4s basically. And in the coloring in the table, you can already see it, that there's such a strong density. And it makes sense, right? A lot of Germans in this data pool, and they go on vacation to the Mediterranean. But if you're a compliance specialist, this is helpful to know, right? Because if you can cover 50% of your request with only looking in depth into 5 destination countries for the compliance arrangement, well, that's helpful, right? It at least helps you to focus your resources. So I think this is a very, very interesting insight. We've got one other cool insight on destination. We'll get to that in a second. Workations are, I think, a true benefit of the future. This graph shows. I had a little bit of connection issues here. I'll reshare my screen. Sorry. I'm only a tax lawyer. I don't know internet connections very well. Should be able to see my screen again. So what this graph shows you is that workations are a true benefit of the future. What it shows here is the number of requests. So the higher the bar, the higher the number of requests based on the year of birth. You can see them in the bottom of the page, and you can see a very strong density of requests for people born in the, let's say, late 80s and 90s. So a little bit younger than me, I have to admit. I can imagine, I have kids. Pretty difficult to go on a workation too often, but if you don't have kids yet, this is the time to shine, right? Indeed, enjoy this benefit, and you see this happening. So I think a real benefit of the future, super interesting, especially if you're sourcing, if you're looking for new young talent to join your company. What we get a lot is, before companies have introduced a policy, is how many requests are we going to have? And the answer is, I don't know, right? Nobody really knows. You're looking to the future. It's difficult to guess, but I have some data here with you. What we've seen is usually that our clients expect 0.5 requests per employee per year. That's already quite high, I'm aware, right? But I guess the companies are usually early adopters. Then the number of requests start communicating workations, and maybe even more requests than more as a benefit even. You see the actual requests growing to somewhere around 1 per employee. Already 100% increase compared to the expectation, right? At the same time, you see that in the last statistic, 1.74, this 1 request per employee doesn't mean every employee does this. You see also a centralization around a particular group of employees, probably the younger ones, right? Those because the 1.74 shows that if an employee already did 1 workation, they're very likely to do it again. So repetitive workationing, basically. We see that also within our own company. We've got people who are abroad more or less all the time, and then me, myself, I'm just always in the Netherlands, right? So it's interesting to see how much higher the actual number of requests is, but also to see that there's a focus again. And hopefully this guides every one of you a little bit on what to expect when you're introducing a policy. I think 1 is a good number to keep in mind, 1 request per employee per year. All right, I don't want to make this too complex, but this is a really cool one. So what you see here basically is that if you look at the WorkFlex workation request, we see a dramatic overrepresentation of other nationalities. So basically non-Germans. As I said, most of our clients are German headquarters, at least. So a lot of German nationals working for them. But if you then look at the workation requests, the very high number of those requests are made by non-German national. So you can see for 82% of the requests, the origin country is Germany. So they're all based in Germany, but only 42% of the requests are actually made by Germans. That means that 60% of them are made by non-Germans. Very interesting, and that relates to this last point. There are very clearly 2 use cases for workations. And the first one is truly workations. German nationals, you can see them here in green, going to Mediterranean countries, going on a vacation and work a little bit in the process. So they go to Spain, to Italy, to Austria, Portugal, France, Greece, etc. But then the second use case, and I hope that's still surprising for some of you, and for some of you it's definitely not anymore, but I think it's really cool to see, is the use case of family visits. I personally had also not really expected this use case to be so big, but it's the yellow part here, and you can see that's Indian nationals, so mainly working in the Netherlands or Germany or Austria, where our clients are, but to their home country. So it's a family visit. It's Indians traveling to India. It's Italians traveling to Italy. It's French people traveling to France, etc. So you see this on the right-hand side, the yellow bars. It's a very, very big use case. So it should ring a bell. If you have a very international workforce, this is not only going to be a very interesting benefit for your young employees, this is also going to be a very interesting benefit for your international employees. All right. I've seen already some questions coming in, really good, but I'm only human, and I'm also a guy, so I can't do 2 things at the same time. Gudrun, I mentioned your name a couple of times, especially around the thresholds, and I know Bosch, you have for 54 days, right? May I ask you to give your in German to your threshold and how you look at this graph where you see a wide variety of thresholds?
So we certainly at Bosch, I mean, this is a big company, so we have really high requirements concerning compliance. So we were really looking to set the threshold as high as possible. So that was one of, from the recruiting side, like as high as possible, but at the same time avoiding a lot of problems that would naturally occur. And I mean, the 54 days are really coming from the EU legislation on social security, because we have many associates who have their center of life interests outside of Germany. That means the family may live somewhere else. And with 54 days, you stay below the threshold of 25% of working time. Yeah. So we were just looking at several parameters and saying, okay, if we can exclude these cases already, that will save us a lot of problems, from a lot of problems. Then we certainly aligned the 54 days with all other stakeholders, especially the tax department, looking at PE risk and so on. And everybody said that's fine for us, but it is a natural. It's not a necessity. It is really a number of days that we chose after considering all the problems that might occur during such a stay.
Very good. Thank you very much. So a question is it for 54 working days or calendar days?
It's 54 working days. So we were calculating with 220 working days in Germany. That certainly, if we roll it out for other countries, we would have to consider how many working days their social security accepts, but it's 54 working days.
Great. Thank you very much. So first question that came in from Felster. Daniel, you already showed interest in answering it. The question is, how did you start to implement a Workation solution? Do you discuss with management? How do you get to an agreement? How do you check the regulations, etc.? Daniel, can you comment on this?
Pleasure. So her name is Nicole. We clarified that in the chat already. So Nicole, first, happy to answer or give some impulses here. First of all, and that's what we also see at Clevis by consulting all different types of companies being interested in this kind of new benefit. It really depends on the size of the company, and it also depends on the industry the company is operating in. So if we talk about startups, they usually have quite a young population, very international population. So you need to have it. So you really need to provide that. And Corona has shown it. There is a way, even if it's not compliant, but it was possible just to go somewhere, working somewhere. So these kind of companies, they really have to think about it and push it through. The whole topic is led by the HR department or the people and culture team, and they just get the sign off from leadership. So that's always necessary. Get the sign off from leadership. When we talk about bigger corporations or the SME market in Germany, quite often you have the Workers' Council involved. So you as an HR department, I would recommend you consult first with the Workers' Council. Usually not a problem because it's a benefit. Once you have the Workers' Council, you go to senior management. Really, again, depending on the size of your company, if you're a big enterprise client, or I guess if you're like Bosch, at some stage you first of all you consult with your CHRO, and then later you have to inform the higher ranks. Okay. Gudrun, you want to say something?
Just want to add that I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to, but I can say it now. I would really, I try to stay under the radar and rather do it like on a smooth way without involving too many people. However, at the end we ended up in senior management as really on board level.
Yep.
And looking back in hindsight, I would say that was the best thing we could do. Yeah, because you will have a lot of discussions in the company. Many people, there are also supervisors and managers who do not like it at all, and you need a good justification if you do it. So
exactly. Thanks for confirming, Gudrun, because what I wanted to come to is especially in bigger corporations, the risk awareness or the risk management has been established quite massively. So if you look in these companies like the likes of Bosch, they fall under lots of regulations. So there's kind of a fear to be incompliant. And if you just come with the idea of an international Workation to senior management unprepared, they will reject it. They will just say, no, it's incompliant, it's hard to manage, it costs a lot of money. We don't do it, not for now. I think this really happened during Corona. There was a rejection of these requests because of the incompliance risk. But if you get the business case right, as an HR department in a bigger corporation. As you said, Gudrun, you just plan something, you document the pros and cons, and you also link up with talent management and recruiting. Then they will tell you, okay, if we don't offer that, first of all, we will lose people. Secondly, we will not find, or we will not attract people. So if you go with this case to senior management, what do you like more? Being 100 or 120% compliant with whatever regulation we have in this world, or you want to make sure we have a stable talent pipeline coming, joining, or staying in our company, then senior management will do the math and will say, okay, without people, there is no incompliance. So, so we should really focus on this, on the people aspect here, and find a way to implement that and to offer that. And I think this is really how it goes. In charge for this whole vocation stuff, in my view, is the people and culture / HR department, and they have to find an alignment and an agreement with other functions who are in charge for compliance, i.e. the CFO or the chief tax officer, whatever, and to get the case together. And then you have a great management decision template or proposal, and you just get it signed off. And I think that's a very good point where you will find out how progressive your company is. Yeah.
Yeah, or not indeed. Yeah, that's very good. Thanks for this elaborate answer, Daniel. Also, Gudrun for stepping in. Really cool. Thank you for your question, Nicole, and apologies for calling you by the wrong name. Before we go to focus on Allianz a little bit, a very interesting question from Steffi. I think, Gudrun, good question for you. How do your employees usually choose their destinations? Do you work together with partners? Do they organize everything on their own? So what's the level of involvement of the employer?
So everything has to be organized by the associate themselves. That's the one thing. We only provide the check, and we have to give the approval. That's we stay out of this. Concerning the choice of countries, people are totally free to try whatever country they want. However, we are doing a check on the country overall before we allow it in our bot. That means if you choose a country that's not possible, you will receive the answer, sorry, this country is not on our list at the moment. And for the moment, we provide 45 countries. We have 45 countries where we allow to work from. More countries to follow, and the experience is really, you cannot have enough countries. So if you allow 10, they will demand 20, and if you allow 45, you will need 70. So it's really up to the associates to try. But if they choose a country that we do not have in our portfolio, then they will receive a rejection from the bot.
Very good. Thank you. Just one very short follow-up question, because I think it's super interesting, and it just came in from Niklas. You say looking at destinations, the more the better. Is that the same for the number of days? Niklas' question is, for companies below 30 days, do you need, are you making exceptions for family visits? Do you see a push for a higher number of days also, although you're already at 54, which is not bad?
Absolutely. It cannot be enough. It cannot be enough. We have vital discussions on why we are so restrictive, and we are really not understanding the needs. And so it cannot be enough. The more, the best.
Thanks. Well, that's a very clear message to send. Thanks. Really good. All right. So now that we're at it, I'm going to start the video for Allianz in a second, but there's a question even directed directly at you, Gudrun. When deciding for a country, do you only check the legal risks, or also in terms of crisis, healthcare, and whatever?
So we first of all check the tax risks and the social security risks, and certainly also export control, and then certainly we also look at security topics. But security, not so much. I mean, we assume that somebody who wants to work in a certain country can usually move in this country. So we are not moving in the same line as for example, for business travel. It's not the same. But if a country is really, really dangerous, we would not allow it.
Yeah, thanks. I think at WorkFlex, by the way, we have the same SOS countries, etc. We do some kind of check. At the end of the day, maybe a very interesting insight. We had a couple of countries on the list that were considered dangerous by some type of organization, and we got feedback from an employee of a client saying, "Yeah, but I happen to be from that country originally, so if I go there, it's like for me, it's really not that dangerous." So at the end of the day, even this is an individual matter. I think really interesting. All right. As I already mentioned, Oana brought a pretty cool video from Allianz. Oana, shall I just start it and then afterwards you give some context, or would you like to introduce it?
I can say a few words before starting the video. So this video was prepared after we have already had the experience with Workation for our employees. And the purpose of the video was first to use it internally and of course externally now that we have the chance, in order to promote the video for all the employees to understand, to promote the process, in order for more employees to understand what this means, meaning that we allow the employees to work remotely, and also to see the side of the perspective of the employees that have already benefited from the program, and to see that it's a benefit for them and they are enjoying it.
Very good. Well, that last part is, I think, like it shows in the video. Let me start it and enjoy it. I hope it works. Technically, we tried it before, so
the sound doesn't work. Okay, so I believe you can also understand without the background music.
Yes, I think it even works. So for the audience, it seemed to have worked with the audio. Thank God. So really cool.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is an amazing video. Not only because it's like really cool made, but of course, especially what it shows. I see some thumbs up from the audience already. So this is very much about employee experience. So I'd like to focus a little bit on that, Anna, because what I know from the companies that I speak to is that they allow this because they have to, but going the way from allowing it to really communicating it as a benefit and putting it within the company and say, hey, this is really an experience and make something cool out of it. It's a big leap. Did you do this from the start, or when did you decide to, let's say, go more out in the open like this within Allianz?
Yeah, so at the beginning, we only had internal communications, like we have an internal web page, of course, and there we had the page that was addressed to this topic. And also we did a lot of communications through the HR lines for each entity that we have, because Allianz is a big company and has a lot of entities under this Allianz name, yeah. And of course, at the beginning, as you know, we had another video which was more focused on the compliance side, again, for the employees, for the managers, for the business, for everybody to understand what this process means, what are the risks, what we need to take into account, and what are our internal rules. And since we already had that compliance part covered by this video, we wanted to show more the benefit of this program to the employees. Because even though we made a lot of communications, there were still employees that weren't sure about this program, what it means, if they need to do anything extra, if it would be much more effort from their side in order to just raise a request and so on. So that's why we wanted to promote this program internally, because we really, in Allianz, we have a lot of support on this topic. From the high level, from the top roles of the company, let's say it this way, and everybody is interested about this topic. Whenever we have a guest, for example, coming in Romania, is asking about cross-border, even though he's an expert or I don't know, finance or whatever. So we wanted to give more feedback about this. That's why we needed to make another video.
Really cool. I already saw your thumbs up also, Gudrun. You must have also liked the video. Do you within Bosch also communicate this thing as a benefit, or do you communicate it very clearly to your employees at all? How do you do this?
So we communicated, however, not in such an active way. So it's another way of working. We have made advertisement not so much. So it's something you find certainly everywhere if you're interested in it. But it gave me some inspiration, the video. So we have done that so far. So it is there. Meanwhile, after 1 year, I can, or close to 1 year, I can say people know about it. So it's really well known. But we haven't thought of such a video, and I find it really a nice idea.
Thanks, Daniel. You've seen a lot of companies dealing with this topic, bigger modern mobility as well. Do you see many of them, some of them really going very actively to their employees with like this as a benefit and marketing it more or less like Allianz does with this video?
So again, I would make a differentiation between startup world and more the settled bigger corporations. So in the startup world, it's really pushed by the employees. They just expect it. So the solution has to be found and it has to be implemented, and they have to be able to use it. When we talk about the bigger corporations, what we see, it's kind of mixed. There is this international population, as you described it in your data analysis, like the 60% of people with a cultural background in Germany applying for this benefit once it's implemented. They certainly like to have it. Whether they are loud about it to have it implemented, I doubt. It's not there, so they don't necessarily think the corporation would be willing to implement it. But I guess this is where the HR business partners come into the game, and they are the brokers of the deal. And when it comes to traditional staff, I would say long time with the company. I think in what I see, it's not that present that there is this opportunity that you could do that. So they don't necessarily proactively ask for that. That would be my observation, dealing with different types of companies.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I see a very interesting question from Melina. Yeah, we happen to have Bosch and Allianz on this call, so very large employers. But well, if you're a small and medium-sized company, what can you then still do to implement it legally secure? So maybe first, Daniel, a couple of words from you. I think you've seen more companies than, well, definitely than Oana and Gudrun, because they work within such a massive company. You've seen smaller companies adopt this topic too. And then I think, especially I see a lot of compliance questions. Probably Oana and Gudrun will get back to you on some compliance details. Daniel?
Sorry, what was your question, Peter?
How do you see, well, you already said you see this differentiation between large companies going about this
Yes.
topic and smaller ones. Do you see a very clear difference in also the policy that they adopt? What Melina specifically asks, for instance, smaller companies don't have offices spread all around Europe, for instance. Do you see that this has an impact for those
I think
companies or not
at
really?
the beginning, so if we talk about smaller companies, Mittelstand, so for either they don't necessarily know that there's a solution around managing international location. Once they get to know about it, or once the pressure comes from the employees that they would like to have it, and they dig into that, they come very quickly to the point of the compliance questions. I think in the past, the first reaction was, yeah, let's consult with one of our big four companies helping us with the cross-border compliance stuff. And then they got the bill for that, and this really said, oh my God, no, we don't do that. So I think this is also something which happened during the pandemic, that there was like a rejection of this, because it's international, it's compliance, it's risk, it's not the corporate policy or the company policy to expose ourselves to risk. But then more and more, the more employees got to know about this benefit, and I mean, employees don't call it benefit. It's just their experience being able to work somewhere else and connected with vacation. Yeah, the more it got present within HR, and then the HR departments, they started building the case, as I described it earlier on a bit. So beside the compliance, what is the risk if we? It's a different risk. What is the risk not to have a happy employee? And with this knowledge, or with this insight, HR, also in smaller companies, of course, in smaller companies, because they have the direct link to leadership, to managing director, or the board. They were able to go there and say, look, on the one hand, we have the compliance risk. On the other hand, we have a real threat if we don't provide this benefit to our employees, because they also talk to other employees in other companies, to lose them or not attract them, because we are losing a USP here in our local market. There is another employer who already allows that. So these guys, they are going now there, and they don't come to us. So with this is game changing to me. Smaller companies, they got to know about this topic. They know about the compliance. They also see now the case to be built for employee retention, employee attraction. And then the next step is, how can we manage this mess? So our employees, they want to go, I don't know, to Turkey and Spain and Italy and wherever. No clue. I don't want to ask one of the big four telling me about all these risks down there, because I know it already. It's risky, maybe not to the full extent, but it is risky. So yeah, but we are already at the stage where we know about it, and we just have to manage it. We have to manage the risk, and this is where the technology comes into the game. They get to know about you guys or other providers, and they start thinking about implementing this technology. And once you have like, as an HR person, once you have digested this elephant, which means, oh my God, complexity for 10 people, how to manage that. Yeah, I know the risks. I know I can keep this talent by providing it. I know there's a technology. Then let's talk about our internal rules. So for how many days would I, as an employer, would I like to provide this benefit? And this is which then has an impact on the policy, and the policies can be very lean, to be honest. And the whole process itself is managed by the tool. So long talking, Peter. Hope that makes sense.
No, but yeah, but that's okay, right? And what I really like is you come from like a different angle, right? Saying, well, yeah, there might be tax and legal compliance risks, which we're going to focus on right now. And I saw a question: are we going to show the video? Yeah, why not? We can show the longer video on compliance too. But there's also a true HR risk to take into account. Oana, the question from Melina, right? So she says, oh yeah, you're a super small Allianz, so you're lucky to have entities all around the EU. Do you think that's at all relevant for you? Like, maybe stupid question, right? But if I work at Allianz Germany and I go to Spain on a workation, how is Allianz Spain involved? It's not, right?
So the role is not to be involved at all. Whenever we approve such a request from an employee to work remotely from Spain, Italy, whatever country, they receive specific instructions from our side, actually from the tool, because we also have that this is in the tool. And one of the rule that we have is that they cannot use any other Allianz premises in that country, yeah, because this will be an aspect that can trigger some corporate tax implications. So we will talk about permanent establishment risk and so on. So we are trying to lower this risk as much as possible. So that's why we are not allowing the employees to use the Allianz offices from abroad when they are doing a workation there. It's just in our program, yeah, we think about workation, of course, just for personal purposes. So they cannot use this program by doing their, I don't know, business trips or doing activities at the office in the other country.
Yeah, thanks. I absolutely agree, Melina. I think that the thing is that if you don't have offices all around, Europe doesn't matter, right? Exactly. So that's not what Workations are about. So Melina works at a smaller company. Good for you. Not a true difference. In my experience, even I've seen smaller companies act much quicker on this topic compared to the big ones, because the big ones are very much aware of the compliance risks, and because there's so many people involved right away, they have to be a little bit more cautious. And Gudrun, probably you can confirm this. And I think there's also one very interesting question from Michelle that I'd like you to go into, and that's the question that she's seen other webinars, and you should not let your employees work in countries where they have family relations, and especially not from a private place or family or friends place. Reason were social security and tax risks. What's your view on this?
Mm-hmm. So maybe first of all, general remark. We have like to figure out which countries we allow. We have involved our partners in other countries, and I would say it helps if certainly you have subsidiaries where you have tax experts. So it's not if it comes to working, yes, they are not working there, but it certainly helps to have this infrastructure. What was the question again? Sorry, please repeat the question to me.
It's on center of vital interest, so you can't let your employees. So probably the use case family visit. That's very difficult because they will work from a private place. How do you see this?
So I think you would have a very hard time if you excluded family visits, because this is one, as you showed, Peter. This is one of the use case. We have the vacationers who really want to work from southern France, although they are German. But we have a huge group of people who really want to work staying with their family. So we did not feel we could exclude it. But at Bosch, we have a twofold check. So the first check is it generally possible that is done by the bot? Every single case is checked individually, and if you have a family in the country, it may not always be a problem. It's mostly a problem in the EU, but it may also imply or require that you apply for the social security statement, the A1, in another country. And this is a case that we allow, but we use external providers here. We cannot do this. We do not know how to do this. We do not know whom to address. In this case, additional costs occur. We need an additional cost approval, but we did not think we could exclude these cases because they are a significant part of our requests. And maybe one general remark still about the risk management. We must be aware that we cannot exclude every risk. And I would never have promised to my board of management that this is zero risk. We were always talking about risk management. a good risk management that minimizes the risk. But this topic is so broad that if you want to eliminate every risk, you cannot do it.
Yeah, thanks. That's a very important thing to say. Life is not risk-free. Daniel's already mentioned the HR risk if you don't do anything. But yeah, even if you do allow it and people are going somewhere, you can do as best as you can, but entirely risk-free it will never be.
Just looking at the chat, I think Tom and Melina, they're from one company. They have a question, I think, on the process itself and the risk management and the risk exclusion. Maybe that's something, Peter, you could comment on, because you have the tool.
I would love to do so, but I think I will start the video on the compliance topics first. It's a 4-minute video. It's also from Allianz, and it super nicely summarizes the risks. And then I think afterwards, Juana for Allianz and I for WorkFlex can tell a little bit about, well, how do we try to manage this? And by the way, Bosch also has a tool in place. So 3 experiences that we can share on the process. Oana, any introduction on the compliance video, or shall I just start?
I think you can start it.
Okay, so dear audience, it's also a really cool video. It takes a couple of minutes, but it really summarizes the compliance risks nicely. And I think, by the way, this is one of the benefits of doing a little bit of a longer session. Stick with us. Now you can see this type of videos. Otherwise, in an hour, this would have never been possible. So I'm going to start the Compliance Insights video from Allianz. Here we go.
The COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that working in a remote and virtual way at Allianz is possible. Actually, this has been a positive experience for many of us. Unless you have little children who need our attention, a partner or pet who crashes our video calls, or other distractions at home. Working remotely will become part of our new model at Allianz, but it also has its limitations. As Allianz is a truly international company, you may ask yourself why it actually matters where remote work takes place. For example, why can't I work remotely from France or Spain if I have a German employment contract? While working anywhere within the country of employment has very few constraints, working from other countries outside the country of employment requires special attention, as it includes a number of risks and limitations, including tax, social security, labor law, work permits, visa restrictions, as well as other regulatory issues. For example, did you know that working remotely from another country can lead to the creation of a new permanent establishment for Allianz, which can result in high costs as corporate income needs to be allocated to that branch and will have to be taxed in the foreign country. Significant shifts of profits between Allianz branches in different countries, with potential consequences on the company's income and tax position. Changes in wage tax and social security, which can have consequences for both you and Allianz. A liability could arise from your pure presence in a specific country. Non-compliance with these topics can lead to high penalties, both personal and monetary. Unfortunately, what makes it even more complex is that there are no general rules which can be applied for all cases, as each case depends on the country combination, your personal situation and function, as well as Allianz entity specifics. Therefore, each request to work remotely from outside the country of employment needs to be properly assessed. So while in theory technical devices and global connectivity made cross-border working arrangements easy for employees, the reality is that tax, social security, immigration, and labor law do not always support this. Now, you are probably thinking, cross-border remote work is not possible at Allianz because it's too complex. But actually, Allianz wants to enable cross-border remote work as part of the new work model and has explored ways of allowing it while ensuring compliance. How does it work? If you want to work from outside your country of employment, you can use the self-assessment app for cross-border remote work to answer a few simple questions about your planned cross-border remote work up to 25 days per year and receive an automatic assessment in a few minutes. If you receive a green light, you can perform your planned cross-border work, and you will receive a list with do's and don'ts. Please make sure to inform your line manager. If your request is not within the Allianz guideline for remote cross-border work, you will receive a red light and cannot perform your cross-border work as planned. In some cases, you will receive an orange light, which means that a more detailed assessment is needed based on your input. In this case, your HR business partner will reach out to you in due time. As long as the app has not been rolled out or does not support your requests, you can contact your HR business partner who will discuss the next steps with you. In general, requests to work up to 25 days per year from another country are less critical, and there is a high degree of flexibility. Nevertheless, there will still be restrictions or cases that will require an external assessment and finally cannot be approved based on the individual situation or country combinations. Cross-border requests for more than 25 days will only be approved on an exceptional basis and require a thorough assessment by an external provider, as they are far more complex and may have additional consequences. The costs for this assessment, which can be quite significant, will have to be borne by your line manager. Please reach out to your HR business partner for further information. As you can see, it's a complicated topic, and there is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Yet as part of the new work model, Allianz aims to structure the working environment for as flexible and open as possible, while ensuring compliance and avoiding negative consequences.
All right. Very cool video, I think. Again, thank you, Juana, for bringing it. See a lot of questions indeed on the process, how we deal with the compliance risks, and also who pays for this. And I saw also a question from, I think it was Natalia, something like this. Just for the record, so Allianz and Bosch, they're not clients of WorkFlex. I think we're actually bringing 3 different, let's say, technologies for you to learn from today. So we at WorkFlex, we have external clients, but Allianz and Bosch are not amongst them. They've actually built their own solution. So maybe what's a good idea if Oana, you start by quickly explaining what your tool works. I think the video already did a great job, but maybe from how do you work with the steps, and also immediately address who bears the cost of anything that might pop up. It was also in the video, but just maybe in a summary. Gudrun, I will ask you to do the same, exactly the same after this, and then I can close from a WorkFlex perspective, and then we can dig into some more detailed compliance questions also. Juana?
Okay, so first, what's very important to understand about our program is that we never say that we are allowing remote work from anywhere. I know that we see some titles in the media and social media and so on, but we cannot have this process, yeah, because as anybody mentioned here, we see a lot of risks, yeah. And we set up this process that basically we have, let's say, general rules, but every time we take into account the personal situation of the employee. And I'm talking about employment situation and also personal situation. So that's why we do a case-by-case analysis. And this is the purpose of the tool. And we, of course, we are the ones that we are working on we call it the tool logic, and it's actually the brain of the tool, because the tool only knows how to process those cases if we have the input and if we update it whenever we have new knowledge on the implications that we have on some countries or different cases. For example, we might have a different case if the employee has a different nationality than mine, and so on. So it's not a tool, or it's not a program that allows everybody to do whatever they want. Yeah, we allow and we promote this cross-border remote work as only if the compliance requirements are met, yeah, and only if the company is not facing, let's say, a high risk, because we never say that the risk is low. We say that it's low, but we are always having a risk, yeah. So we implemented this internal tool, this automation solution. This was developed internally. And how the process goes is that each employee has access to this tool. One mention is that at this moment, we have 53,000 users. Apart from that, there are still entities at Allianz that have not joined the tool yet. But each day we are growing. Yeah. And based on the questions that we have here, we have into the tool, we have a few questions regarding, of course, the destination country, nationality, a job role, which is very important if you talk about corporate tax implications. And based on that, the tool can assess in most of the cases if the case is permitted and shows a green light. If the case is not permitted, because we know that we have a risk, there are high risk in that country, the case is not permitted. And we have the third option, meaning that the employee receives an orange traffic light, which means that we need to go into a deeper assessment. And what's important to understand is that, for example, for those cases that have already been assessed by the tool, green or red, there's nothing else to do from the company side, because in terms of reviewing the case, because we have already implemented in the tool the knowledge to be able to assess this case. Of course, if there is another employee and the situation is a bit different, for example, has another job role, as I mentioned, or another nationality, the result might not be the same. So the tool does a case-by-case review. And for those cases that cannot be automated yet, we have to clarify this with the employees. As I said, I'm one of the members of the cross-border team that actually does this. And we are taking care of not all the Allianz entities, but part of them. The rest have also a designated person taking care of that part, mostly in the HR department. And what to do is to clarify with the employee whatever aspect triggered the orange traffic light. For example, we ask additional questions about residency, about nationality, and so on. And after that, we can approve it or reject it manually, of course. Also, we learn from each case. So whenever we have new knowledge, we are updating the tool. We had the first, so the tool went live in October 2021. The first update of the tool was last year in August 2022, when we added, I believe, around 11 countries. And now we are about to do another update in a few months. So we are constantly growing, and that's because we have this, we received the support internally, and of course we had situation when it's impossible to know all the legislation around the world. Yeah, so whenever we think that internally we cannot solve a case, we go to our provider and reach out for their support, of course, if the costs are covered by the line manager, as we have in our process.
Yeah, I think that's a very good addition. So, and maybe for the audience, let's try to make it concrete, right? So for how many cases do you really, well, not a number, right? But like maybe a percentage or just a little bit of gut feeling. For how many cases do you really then involve your external lawyers or tax lawyers or advisors at least and pay money for them, as well as, you see a lot of questions on this, and how many cases do you actually actively pursue in getting a work permit for a workation if required? Like, do you see that happening a lot, or is that absolutely an exception for you?
So at this moment, the tool until this moment, the tool was able to automatically solve around 85% of the cases. And we have the remaining 15 cases that were assessed manually. Out of these, I think that from the 50%, I think that more than 10% are solved internally, and I'm meaning by myself and our colleagues, and also we have support from our tax department. So we are not alone in this. We have internal support, and the rest goes to the external provider mainly for the countries when we don't have an assessment, when we don't have knowledge. And what I just want to mention is that this percentage, what can be solved internally and externally, applies to the German community. So I'm only referring to the German, the employees that are located, to the employees that are employed by a German entity, because I have this number in mind. But in addition to this, we also have entities that are onboarded on a global level. But I don't have the number for those ones.
Okay. No, but very, very helpful. So it's like it's only 5% where you would actually reach out for local advisor. I think it's a rather low number, and that makes sense if you have a technology in place. So really, two very short questions to you, Oana, before we move to Bosch. How large is the team in Romania? Is a question, interesting to know. And two, do you also do the A1 quest, or is that who does that?
In Romania, we are a team of 4 now. But as I said, we are only taking care of some of the entities, not all Allianz. So we won't be able to do this. Regarding the A1 certificates, our team's role is to review the cases from a compliance side. And then after that, we are not taking care of any administrative requirements. As A1 and I don't know, certificate of coverage and so on. Then the HR department of each entity decides who is in charge of that, what to do, and so on, considering each case. Yeah, we are just reviewing and saying what are the requirements for that specific case. And I know that you also asked about immigration. Another aspect that we should mention is that Allianz as a company does not support the employees with the immigration application. So whenever there's a need for a work permit that involves the company, we are not going further with that case. So the case will not be allowed. However, there are countries that have recently implemented other type of visa, like digital nomad visa, remote work visa, and so on, that can be obtained by the employees. So in this case, if the employee obtains that visa, we give the green light.
Yeah, very good. Thanks. We have a similar approach at WorkFlex, but let's focus on Bosch first a little bit. So Gudrun, can you quickly introduce like the process that you use with the tool? I saw you already responded in the chat a little bit, and maybe especially focus also on, because I know you have processes for the A1 request then in place, how this fits into the process, please.
Mm-hmm. So we have a process that starts with a chatbot that we have fed ourselves with our expert knowledge. And this is a check my case, it's called. So you check your case, and it's maybe interesting to hear that we have thousands of requests. I think last time I checked, it was 13,000 people have checked their case, but we only have 2,000 applications. So that also helps to bring the expectations down, so people can see, okay, this is maybe not such a good idea to work in such and such a country, or oh, my constellation, or maybe I have to change my request. So a lot of these questions that before arrived somewhere in the HR area and nobody could answer them, they are taken care of by the bot. Then these 2,000 cases that we now have, the people out of the bot, they create a PDF, and that is sent to our team in Portugal. So it's pretty much, it's very similar to what Allianz does. So our team sits in Portugal. It's a team of 3, and then they will do the individual case check. They will start also the A1 application. We are here also using also an automized process that we have for our business trips partially, so we can partially use this. And at the end of the process, the associate receives an approval, if everything is there, the approval from the team by mail. And that is the end of the process. And then the mail says, yeah, we allow you to work from this and then to then and then in country XYZ. Yeah. So that's basically the process. This approval is then filed. And this is it until the associate comes back with a new request. So this is in short the process.
And maybe quickly some
Go ahead.
And how do you deal with visa? Is that similar to Allianz?
A visa, I mean, our bot says it checks the nationality, and if it's not the same nationality or it's not a EU citizenship and it's within EU, then you will get a very early in the process of the chatbot, it will say you have to check if you can get a visa, because we did not intend to dive into this topic because we are not familiar with this kind of visa. This is not the visa type that we are experts on. Honestly, I didn't expect it, but it becomes our problem because people are, seems to be a very gray area. So many states, many embassies and so on do not seem to know very well what to do. So it happens all the time that we receive some strange certificates in foreign languages, or we receive approvals from consulates who say it's no problem. While we know it is a problem, then we go back to our colleagues in the country and check it, and they say, no, under no circumstances you can work. So this is really difficult, and we have to build some expertise. We didn't want to, but we have to build some expertise in visa regulations now, because it seems that consulates are not also very uncertain if it's allowed or not to work in a certain country. And I have to say, all the articles in newspapers that pointed on the legal risks, they always focused on this visa topic. Yeah? So they were always saying, oh, people were arrested because they were working and didn't have a work permit. So this is a very visible risk. Yeah? And we feel forced to get experts on the topic. But I feel many things are moving at the moment. I would assume in 2 or 3 years, we will have regulations on that. The states will, the countries will create visa for these kind of people, or they will regulate it. But at the moment, we are really pretty much in Wild West, I feel.
Yeah. Very, very well. Thank you. And you've already made the transition to the future. So I'm aware for time, only 8 minutes left. Let's all spend a little bit time on the future, but let me make very quick summary also for WorkFlex. So the system of WorkFlex is similar to what Allianz and Bosch have in place. So we assess the risks and we get all types of documentation in place, A1, etc., etc. But what you will see with everyone talking about Workations, so dear audience, see a lot of questions. No employer has the ambition to make this benefit a true employer burden with a lot of cost and having to take responsibility for a visa or having to ask local advisors. No, we're trying to create a benefit and not a burden. And this benefit, there's a lot of possibilities, right? 25 days up to 54 days, various locations. If you meet certain conditions, there is a lot possible without having the need for this visa or without having the need to engage local advisors or whatever. And that's, I think, the current status of all employers that have adopted something around this. We try to search or to find that pool of locations and that duration to basically enable a benefit and prevent an employer burden from popping up. So Gudrun, to stick with you, because you've already you've given a hint on how you see this happening in the future. You expect the regulations to change. How do you expect this workation as a benefit to develop over the next, let's say 5 years, a pretty long horizon?
So I have already, let me start there. When we implemented it with very little manpower. We were really working to the edge, and we felt like we were the heroes somehow. Yeah, and we were going on the market, and we expected like somebody to say, "Oh, thank you. That is such a wonderful that you make this possible with all your work." And the contrary was the case. So we get a lot of criticism. People take it really for granted, and it is an institution now. It's not going away. So I would expect this to stay and to increase. I really hope that at least on the EU level, there will be some improvements on the regulation, which are really now hindering us to do certain things. So I hope for some relaxation. I guess this will remain a constant topic if we want to get qualified people from all over the world. So I expect this to grow bigger and bigger, and I hope for some relief on the legal side, that some, like with all these national interests that we have. So I really hope for some improvement there, but this will not go away for sure.
Thank you. Oana, how do you, so you're already pretty advanced within Allianz. What do you see as the next steps for this benefit?
Yeah, first I fully agree with what Gudrun said. So from my perspective, what I expect is for the countries to align the legislation with this new way of working, because sometimes this is pretty challenging, yeah. And then if we talk about employee experience, of course, we are trying to improve our system. We are trying to improve the program because we started 25 working days. We thought that was our limit for that moment, but now we are thinking maybe we can increase it or not. So we are trying to improve it as well, because we will only see more and more requests in the future. That's my perspective. And also, as Daniel mentioned, the employees start to think this as a must and as a right. Yeah, so whenever they are choosing their employer, they have this question and they are choosing sometimes the employer based on this. So we have to make this possible, and we have to, of course, ensure compliance and to see where the trend goes, and how the entire legislation, if you talk about tax, social security, and so on, will accept this new way of working.
Very good, thank you. Daniel, some final words from you on the future of Workations?
I think there's not much to add to Oana and Gudrun, but yes, I also believe it's becoming a commodity. So this benefit is for everyone. Maybe especially in Germany, maybe the car allowance and the car support is being replaced by international Workations, or at least it would be a bit more sustainable. And as Gudrun also said, I think in order to, again, very Germany specific, in order to stay competitive as a country, as an economy, I think now with all our workers shortage we have and all types of workers we need to attract, be it blue collar or white collar from all over the world, I think we have to show that flexibility and to let them go sometimes work for us in their home country. So this thing it will be, and your data has shown it, the 60% of the applicants are from a foreign country. So I think this really will drive the existence of this benefit. And in terms of legal regulations, I agree, it's a pain. And I'm also with Gudrun here. Hopefully the EU will find a common line of alignment and ease the administration of this stuff. And I guess the last word on you guys, WorkFlex. I think you are perfectly addressing a need. And as we were seeing in the chat, small and medium-sized companies, they need it, but they cannot afford a team of 10 people implementing it. So I think guys like you will further foster the digitization of this benefit.
Well, thank you very much for that, Daniel. That's of course great to hear. People have apparently already found us here today. So www.getworkflex.com if you want more information on this, of course. Yeah, thanks very much. I'm not adding anything around the future except for one thing, and you mentioned it, Daniel. This is really a benefit. McKinsey research actually showed that the number one benefit, of course, remains remuneration, right? We're not a charity. But the second benefit all of a sudden has become employee flexibility. And I think with Workations, if you manage it correctly and really prevent this employer burden, you can make it a very cool benefit, which is relatively cheap for you as an employer, right? Nothing compared to providing a car or something like this. So that's just my last words. Thank you very much, Oana, Gudrun, Daniel, for being here. Oana, especially for you for bringing the cool videos. Really nice. Thank you for sharing your insights, for giving all of the answers. And of course, also to you, the audience, thank you for being here, for sharing your feedback, for asking so many questions. Really, really cool. Always great to see so much interactivity. Again, thank you very much. The recording will be available. The slides can also be shared. I the videos may be shared. I saw a link already. But if you have any questions, reach out to me or any one of us. Thanks again for being here, and I wish you a very good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.